Some people learn too late. You don't defeat the chosen, you just activate them. And that right there is the part your enemy can't swallow. They thought your quiet meant you were weak. They thought your absence meant you were finished. They thought your silence was permission. But silence, for the chosen, is not surrender. It's the loading screen before the impact. It's the calm hand on the chess piece right before the board flips. And the moment they finally realized you weren't gone, you were gearing up, it was already too late. Chosen one, listen to me like I'm speaking directly into your chest. They tried to make you small because your growth terrified them. They tried to stain your name because your future was too bright. They tried to bait you into noise because they couldn't survive your stillness. And the whole time, they kept telling themselves the same lie. They're not coming back. They're done. They lost. But the universe doesn't move with gossip. It moves with precision. It moves like a blade in the dark. It moves like gravity, silent, certain, and undefeated. Here's the quote that hits them hardest. The strongest people don't clap back, they level up. Because you didn't fight the way they expected. You didn't explode. You didn't beg for understanding. You didn't run around trying to prove your worth to people who couldn't afford you anyway. You stayed composed while they got reckless. You stayed focused while they got loud. You stayed aligned while they got desperate. And now, look at the results. They wanted a breakdown. They got a breakthrough. They wanted you scrambling. They got you strategic. They wanted you reacting. They got you rising. You know what really breaks them? It's not your success. It's the fact that their tactics didn't work. It's the fact that they threw shade and you turned it into shelter. They threw stones and you built steps. They tried to bury you, not realizing they were planting you. That's the curse of dealing with a chosen one. Your enemy's hands become the tools of your elevation. They don't understand that the very pressure they applied became the force that shaped you. Like coal becoming diamond, like an arrow pulled back before it's released, like a storm holding its breath before it tears the sky open. And I know what your mind is asking right now. If I really won, why does it still feel quiet? Because checkmate doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with finality. It comes with a heavy silence that settles after the last move, when the opponent stares at the board and realizes there is nothing left to do. That's what you're feeling. That stillness isn't confusion, it's confirmation. It's the universe saying, done. That quiet isn't emptiness. It's the sound of your enemies losing oxygen. Another question you might be asking, why do they keep watching me if they hate me? Because you became a mirror they can't look away from. You became living proof that discipline beats manipulation, that alignment beats envy, that quiet consistency beats loud sabotage. They watch because your life exposes their limits. They watch because you remind them of everything they refuse to become. They watch because your presence is a consequence, and they hate consequences. Let me hit you with another one. When the universe picks you, it also protects you. That's why their attacks kept missing. That's why the trap didn't close. That's why the smear didn't stick. That's why what should have ended you only refined you. They were fighting you like you were just a person. They didn't realize they were fighting the current behind you, and nobody wins a war against the current. All they do is exhaust themselves and drown. Chosen one, your power isn't in how loudly you speak. It's in how deeply you move. You carry the kind of authority that doesn't need permission, the kind of energy that changes the temperature in a room before you even say a word, the kind of presence that makes fake people nervous because you don't need them. You don't chase, you don't perform, you don't beg to be included. You arrive. And when you arrive, the whole atmosphere has to adjust. You want a metaphor? Here it is. They thought you were a candle they could blow out. They didn't know you were a lighthouse. A candle flickers when the wind hits it. A lighthouse doesn't flicker. It warns storms where to go. They wanted to dim your light. Instead, your light became a signal, and now it's calling everything meant for you. So yes, you just secured the biggest checkmate, and this one can't be undone. Not because you got lucky, but because you got aligned. Not because you out-talked them, but because you outlasted them. Not because you played dirtier, but because you played deeper. You moved like someone who knew the outcome before the game started, even when you couldn't explain how. That's what being chosen feels like. You can't always see the whole staircase, but you keep climbing anyway because something in you knows. Before we move forward, pause with us for a moment. If this message is hitting your spirit, if you feel seen, strengthened, or awakened by these words, support this mission. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so this energy reaches more chosen ones who need it right now. And if you're able, consider supporting us through Super Thanks. Your contribution directly helps our team continue creating these powerful, life-changing, high-energy messages with intention and consistency. This isn't just content, it's purpose-driven work. Your support keeps the signal strong and the message alive. Now keep in mind, the board has changed, the roles have changed, and the same people who thought they were ahead of you are about to learn the oldest truth in the universe. You don't stop what was chosen. You only prove it was chosen. Number 1, the move was made in silence and they never saw it. When the smoke clears, only the untouchable are still standing. Some people celebrate too early, not realizing the game already ended while they were laughing. That quote lands like a bruise because it tells the truth they don't want to face. They mistook your quiet for weakness. They mistook your distance for defeat. They thought the silence meant you ran out of moves. What they didn't understand is that silence in the hands of the chosen is not emptiness. It's compression, it's pressure building, it's the pause right before impact. And now that the smoke is settling, they're realizing something far too late. The ones still standing were the ones they should have never provoked. Chosen one, I'm talking directly to you now. They danced on your quiet like it was proof you lost. They talked while you recalibrated. They laughed while you restructured. They mistook your restraint for fear because they don't understand discipline. They thought your stillness was the end frame before collapse. But you weren't breaking, you were charging, you were loading, you were becoming dangerous in ways they don't have the range to comprehend. And now they feel it, that subtle shift, that uncomfortable pressure in the air when your name comes up, that moment when they realize you didn't disappear, you upgraded. You stepped into a position so solid, so precise, so untouchable, they can't even trace how you got there. They blinked, checked the board again, and realized there are no moves left. That's checkmate. Not loud, not dramatic, final. Here's the part that hits them hardest. You didn't win by playing harder. You won by playing smarter. You didn't chase attention. You didn't fight for validation. You didn't exhaust yourself explaining who you were to people committed to misunderstanding you. You moved differently. You chose alignment over noise, focus over frenzy, depth over display. And while they were busy manipulating optics, you were mastering position. The power of being chosen isn't flashy. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't perform for approval. It moves in silence, through long pauses, through decisions that look strange to people who only understand shortcuts. That stillness they mocked, that was your sharpening ground. That was where your instincts got precise, your vision got clear, and your patience turned lethal. While they chased applause, numbers, and quick wins, you disappeared into the background and came back refined. They gamed systems, twisted narratives, masked insecurity with fake concern, and convinced themselves they were ahead because they were louder. But they made one fatal miscalculation. They assumed you were playing the same game. You weren't. They were fighting you like you were just another player. They didn't realize you were moving with timing, with structure, with forces they don't control. And let's address the question that's probably sitting in your mind right now. If I really won, why does it feel so quiet? Because real wins don't echo. They settle, they lock in. The noise comes from struggle, not from dominance. This quiet isn't uncertainty, it's the aftermath. It's what happens when the field goes still because the outcome is already decided. The enemy isn't celebrating because there's nothing left to celebrate. They're stunned, they're recalculating, they're realizing the game ended while they were still posturing. Another question you might be asking, why do they keep watching me if it's over? Because they can feel the loss, even if they can't explain it. They watch because your presence disrupts their narrative. You're walking evidence that restraint beats reaction, that consistency beats sabotage, that quiet discipline beats loud insecurity. You became a mirror they can't stop looking at, and mirrors are uncomfortable for people who avoid accountability. Understand this clearly. You weren't ignored, you were preserved. You weren't stalled, you were being positioned. Every delay wasn't wasted time. It was an investment compounding. Every moment you thought nothing was happening, something critical was being built. Skills were sharpening, awareness was deepening, weak attachments were falling away. You were being protected from doors too small for your future, even when it felt like rejection. Stillness is strategy, always has been. The most dangerous players don't rush. They wait until the board favors them so completely that when they move, it's irreversible. That's why they're restless now. That's why they're uneasy. That's why they keep checking on you. Your silence is no longer invisible to them. It's loud in their world. It shakes their confidence. It cracks the illusions they've been hiding behind. You don't owe them visibility. You don't owe them updates. You don't owe them explanations. Let your composure do the talking. Let your calm confuse them. Let the fact that they can't figure out how you're still standing get under their skin. That's not arrogance. That's positioning. They were reading you like a simple story. They didn't realize you were a code, something that only reveals itself at the right time, to the right level of awareness. Reality doesn't choose the loudest. It selects the real. The ones who keep moving without applause, the ones who sit in uncertainty without panicking, the ones willing to let everything fake fall apart so something solid can take its place. So don't break your silence to prove a point. Don't step into chaos just to be seen. That's what they want, to pull you out of position. But they're too late. The move has already been made. You've already secured what they can't undo. It's almost ironic how sure they were that you were out of options, how small they tried to make you feel, how they treated you like a disposable piece, not realizing that the underestimated piece is the only one that transforms when it reaches the other side. You didn't just survive, you evolved. Quietly, precisely, completely. And now you're something they can't fight, can't reach, and can't reverse. So don't look back. Don't doubt again. You are not someone who barely made it through. You are the force that reshaped the outcome. Let your stillness remind them what real power looks like. Let it echo in every place you've outgrown. The board is clear, the noise is gone, and the only move left belongs to you. Number 2, the game ended before they knew it was over. They thought your stillness meant surrender. They read your quiet as weakness. They assumed that because you weren't reacting, you were retreating. That was their first mistake. The most dangerous moment in any battle is when one side thinks nothing is happening. That's when the trap is already closed. That's when the outcome is sealed. The deadliest moves are never announced. They're executed while the other side is distracted, loud, and convinced they're in control. Chosen One, understand this clearly. What you were practicing wasn't hesitation. It was strategic patience. Not waiting because you were unsure, not pausing because you were afraid, but waiting because you were ahead. Because you could see further, because you understood timing instead of chasing noise. While others rushed to be seen, you slowed down to see everything. While they reacted emotionally, you observed coldly. While they burned energy proving themselves, you conserved power. You didn't freeze. You didn't miss your chance. You didn't lose momentum. You were calculating. You were reading the room, reading people, reading patterns. You were listening to signals most people ignore. And now, while they're scrambling to patch holes, to fix mistakes, to recover ground they didn't realize they were losing, you're still standing calm because everything is finally lining up in your favor. That contrast is what unsettles them. They expected panic. They got precision. They thought your lack of movement meant you were stuck. But only someone inexperienced confuses patience with paralysis. You weren't stalled. You were sharpening. Every pause was deliberate. Every step back was leverage. Every moment of restraint was control. You were doing what predators do, not what prey does. You weren't running. You were coiling. Look at the lion. It doesn't chase every shadow. It doesn't waste energy roaring non-stop. It crouches low, eyes locked, breathing slow, muscles loaded. The real power isn't in the chase. It's in the moment the chase ends. One move, one decision, final. That's how you've been moving. Quiet on the outside, dangerous underneath. They assumed you were falling behind because they only measure momentum by speed and volume. But momentum isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like solitude. Sometimes it looks like being misunderstood. Sometimes it looks like long stretches where nothing appears to be happening. But beneath that surface, systems were shifting. People were revealing their true positions. Weak structures were collapsing. Obstacles were being cleared without you forcing anything. The field was adjusting itself for you. That's why they're nervous now. Because you didn't react when provoked. You didn't break formation when tested. They pushed buttons, withheld validation, tried to bait you into emotional mistakes, and you gave them nothing. You stayed centered. You stayed quiet. You stayed disciplined. That kind of control terrifies people who rely on chaos. They expected desperation. What they got was restraint. Here's what most will never understand. Patience isn't passive, it's predatory. It's pressure held back on purpose. It's the calm before impact. It's the tension in a bowstring pulled tight, not released until the shot can't miss. It's the focus of someone who knows the exact moment to act and refuses to move a second too early. That's not weakness, that's mastery. The ones who dominate long-term don't rush, they don't flinch, they don't get pulled into every emotional skirmish. They wait for conditions to favor them so completely that resistance becomes irrelevant. They understand that what's truly theirs doesn't need to be chased, forced, or defended loudly. It locks in through timing, through alignment, through position. You became one of those players, even before you realized it. You felt the frustration of waiting. You felt the sting of being misread. You felt the urge to strike early just to prove a point. But you didn't. You held your ground. You trusted the process instead of your impulses. And that decision is where everything tilted in your favor. Strategic patience isn't inactivity. It's restraint with intent. It's knowing when not to move. It's holding power until it can no longer be challenged. And now, look at the contrast. They're rushing, overcorrecting, chasing shadows, while you're still because you already know what's coming. You don't feel urgency anymore. You feel certainty. You're not waiting for the moment. You are the moment. If you ever questioned why your path looked slower, why you couldn't move like everyone else, why your rhythm felt different, understand this. Everything was aligning around you, not ahead of you, not behind you, around you. You didn't need to chase opportunities because the right ones are circling back. You didn't need to force recognition because it's becoming unavoidable. You didn't need to explain your value because the shift has already happened. And the ones who once overlooked you are starting to feel exactly what they lost access to. So when stillness shows up again, respect it. Don't break it just to match someone else's pace. Chaos isn't your tempo anymore. You move with precision now. You act when it's right, not when it's loud. Because you don't chase outcomes, you pull them in. And when you finally move, you won't need multiple attempts. One move will be enough. Because this game was decided in silence long before anyone else realized it was over. Before we move forward, pause and check in with yourself. If this message is hitting you, if it's putting words to something you've been feeling but couldn't explain, don't keep it locked inside. This moment matters. This checkmate moment is personal, and your perspective has weight. Write what shifted for you in the comments. Share what you're realizing, what you're letting go of, or what you're stepping into now that this move cannot be undone. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read to trust their own path. Speak it, claim it. This space is for you. Number 3. While they watched you fall, you took the board. They called it a delay, but what they were really watching was pressure being applied. They thought time was slipping away from you, when in reality time was being packed tighter and tighter around you, like a round being seated in a chamber. And here's the truth they never understood. Precision doesn't announce itself. Precision doesn't rush. Precision waits until the moment is fatal. By the time they realize what actually hit them, the sound is already gone, and the outcome is already decided. Chosen one, this is where most people get confused about power. They think precision looks clean, smooth, predictable. They expect progress to move in straight lines, to follow neat timelines, to make sense to everyone watching. But real precision almost never looks like that from the outside. From the outside, it looks like chaos. It looks like missed chances, wrong turns, pauses that feel uncomfortable, seasons that feel like nothing is happening. And that's exactly why they misread you. They assumed disorder meant failure. They assumed silence meant confusion. They assumed delay meant defeat. But you were never being sent somewhere easy. You were being positioned exactly. Your patience wasn't weakness. Your silence wasn't uncertainty. It was part of a sequence too exact for surface-level thinkers to process. You weren't being slowed down. You were being aimed. Every pause tightened the focus. Every setback adjusted the angle. Every obstacle refined the trajectory. This wasn't randomness. This was calibration. They looked at your stillness and labeled it stuckness. They thought you didn't know what to do. They thought you were frozen. But when you're chosen, you don't move on impulse just to feel productive. You move on instinct. You move when the internal signal aligns with the external opening. And instinct doesn't scream. It waits. It watches. It speaks quietly, only to those who can sit with uncertainty without panicking. That's what separated you. You could sit in the unknown without unraveling. You could hold position while others rushed and burned out. And while they kept asking, why aren't they moving yet? Something deeper was being built inside you. Awareness sharpened, discernment improved, weak attachments fell away. You started seeing clearly who and what no longer fit the next phase. That wasn't loss. That was preparation. Look back for a second, not to dwell, but to understand. That rejection wasn't personal. It redirected you away from something misaligned. That opportunity that vanished wasn't stolen from you. It removed you from a path that would have cost you more than it gave. That heartbreak didn't break you open to hurt you. It cracked old layers so your real strength could finally surface. What felt like dismantling was actually refinement. Every detour, every delay, every uncomfortable pause was part of a larger adjustment. The system was being tuned around you, not against you. Because where you're going requires accuracy, it requires timing, it requires you to arrive as the right version of yourself, not just arrive fast. Being off by even a small margin would have put you in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's how exact this path is. That's how intentional this positioning has been. Let them talk. Let them assume you're hesitant, unsure, or falling behind. Let them underestimate the quiet. By the time they realize what you were actually doing, reaction won't be an option. They were guessing moves, reacting emotionally, chasing momentum. You were waiting for alignment. They chased timelines. You followed timing. That's why your presence unsettles them now. That's why they can't predict you. Even you couldn't always see the full picture until the exact second everything clicked and you knew, without explanation, that it was time. You were built for precision, not panic, for decisive movement, not constant motion, for impact, not noise. And that's why the pause was necessary. What's arriving in your life now couldn't show up until all the pieces were set. You weren't being left behind. You were being layered into strategy. It was never just about where you were headed. It was about how you arrived there and what you carried with you. And now something has shifted. You can feel it. The confusion has thinned. The resistance has eased. Decisions feel cleaner. Movement feels intentional instead of forced. That's what alignment feels like. Not hype, not adrenaline, clarity. And when clarity locks in, speed follows. Things that felt stalled suddenly accelerate. Doors open without explanation. People notice overnight success and never see the years of silent calibration behind it. You know the truth. You were never late. You were timed with exact precision. You are no longer stumbling forward, hoping something works. You're moving with purpose because you know when to act and when to wait. So don't doubt the still seasons anymore. Don't apologize for moving quietly while others rush to be seen. Don't explain your pauses to people who don't understand positioning. Precision doesn't make noise, it makes impact. They thought you were drifting, you were being dialed in. And when you land, when your energy meets the exact place it was meant to activate, everything around you will adjust. Opportunities line up. Connections make sense. Timing clicks. It will look sudden to them, but you'll know it wasn't sudden at all. It was surgical. You are the sharpest kind of force, focused, controlled, and devastating when released. And now you're locked, loaded, and exactly on time. Number 4, your stillness was the trap, not the weakness. Chosen one, you asked for inches, but what was being built behind the scenes was a kingdom. You asked for a little relief, a small opening, a sign that things were easing up, and instead you were put under pressure that felt unreasonable, unfair, and relentless. That wasn't because you were overlooked. It was because you were being prepared for something far larger than what you were asking for. They buried you thinking it was the end of your story, but you were never in a grave. You were in the ground growing, expanding in silence where roots form before anything dares rise above the surface. You've been living in a space that feels heavy to explain. The tension between who you used to be and who you're becoming has been stretching you from the inside. That long quiet, that pressure that makes you question whether you're even moving forward, whether you made the right choices, whether you missed your moment. That wasn't confusion. That was the signal. That was the warning before the breakthrough. The stillness before the thunder cracks the sky. Growth doesn't announce itself gently. It tightens first. Let this be clear, because this matters. You are not just rising. You are being launched. And launches don't feel comfortable. Before anything powerful takes off, there is resistance, compression, force pushing in from every direction. You weren't being suffocated. You were being compacted, like coal under pressure turning into diamond, like a bow pulled so tight it looks like it might snap before the arrow is released, like a fault line building pressure quietly until the entire landscape shifts. That pressure wasn't meant to crush you. It was meant to shape you. What you were asking for back then was too small. That version of you didn't yet understand the scale of what was being assembled. You asked for peace, and what was built was power. You hoped for survival, but what was arranged was authority. You begged just to get through the storm, not realizing the storm wasn't there to destroy you. It was there to clear the path so nothing would block your arrival. That's why it felt excessive. That's why it felt like more than you asked for. Because it was. The discomfort you've been sitting in isn't punishment, it's preparation. You've outgrown the version of yourself that fit into smaller spaces. Old mindsets, old environments, old limits you once accepted without question. They can't hold you anymore. That's why everything that no longer fits is peeling away. People drifting out, roles collapsing, situations that once felt normal now feel unbearable. You can't fake small talk. You can't force yourself into rooms that drain you. You can't pretend to care about things that no longer align. That's not instability. That's clarity arriving. This isn't a breakdown. It's a breakthrough that doesn't look pretty yet. The old you had ambitions, wants, goals, dreams, shaped by what you thought was possible. The new you has assignments, and assignments come with weight, with responsibility, with consequences. That's why the process intensified. Before real power can sit in your hands, everything that would misuse it has to be removed. That's why you've been losing things, not because you're failing, but because space is being cleared. Distractions removed, attachments loosened, illusions stripped away. The silence around you isn't abandonment, it's alignment. Everything is being narrowed, focused, brought into precision for what comes next. This moment matters more than you realize. It's a reset that happens below the surface. And while others think nothing is happening, while they assume you stalled or faded out, they're only looking at what's visible. They don't see the foundation being reinforced. They don't see the blueprint adjusting. They don't understand that real transformation happens long before it shows. You're not on the surface right now. You're in the roots. And roots aren't glamorous, but they determine how high something can rise. When you do rise, and you will, it won't be subtle. It won't be easy to dismiss. The same people who laughed at your quiet seasons will be stunned by your emergence. The ones who counted you out will try to figure out how it happened so fast. And the ones who tried to break you will realize too late that all they did was sharpen something that couldn't be destroyed. You didn't fold under pressure. You adapted. You didn't disappear in the dark. You grew there, quietly, patiently, like a seed that no one notices until it splits the ground open. Your isolation wasn't a tomb. It was a womb, a place where something stronger was forming, unseen but inevitable. That tightness you feel now, that restless sense that something is about to change, even though you can't explain how, that's the final moment before emergence. You're not waiting for the light anymore. You are the light. And when you rise, it won't be into a version of you they recognize. It will be into a version they never imagined, one that no longer chases scraps, because you finally understand you were built to lead feasts. So don't resist the stretch. Don't run from the discomfort. This awkward, quiet, uncomfortable phase is where strength is forged. This is where legends are shaped. They buried you thinking silence would erase you, not realizing the silence was just the pause before release. And once that release happens, there is no going back. If your focus feels tired right now, if your mind feels heavy for even a second, let this reset you. Remember what they did. Remember how they doubted you, underestimated you, counted you out too early. Not to stay angry, but to sharpen yourself. Boredom is not a sign you're done. It's a signal that you're leveling up and your old fuel no longer works. This is where you outsmart them. You don't react emotionally. You don't rush. You refine. You become more precise, more intentional, more disciplined than ever before. You move like someone who learned the game the hard way and now plays it flawlessly. Every action becomes calculated. Every decision cleaner, every move quieter but deadlier in impact. While they waste energy watching, comparing, and guessing, you invest yours in mastery. You don't need chaos to stay motivated anymore. You use memory, clarity, and purpose. Let their past actions remind you why you don't slip, why you don't get sloppy, why you don't settle. This is where you turn pressure into precision and motivation into momentum. You don't just keep going, you get sharper. Number 5. What looked like delay locked the checkmate. The ground didn't shake, but the whole game just changed. And that's the part they didn't see coming. Real power doesn't announce itself with chaos or noise. It doesn't need fireworks, drama, or validation. Real power enters quietly, but it brings weight with it. The kind of weight that bends the room, the kind that makes conversations slow down, eyes linger, and people feel something they can't explain. And when that kind of power arrives, nothing breathes the same again. Chosen One, the shift you've been waiting for is not on the way. It already happened. It didn't tap you on the shoulder or ask for permission. It didn't come wrapped in celebration. It settled into you so smoothly that you almost missed it. But make no mistake, the atmosphere around you has changed. Something unspoken has anchored itself in your presence, and everyone who comes near you feels it before they understand it. That's why interactions feel different now. That's why rooms respond differently. That's why silence follows you instead of noise. You crossed an invisible line without realizing it. There is a clear before and after now. On this side, you're not chasing outcomes, people, or approval. You are the arrival. You're no longer trying to be noticed, because attention naturally gravitates toward what's grounded. This has nothing to do with charm, popularity, or being liked. That's surface-level influence. What you stepped into is deeper than that. It's authority without effort, presence without performance, a kind of pull that doesn't beg for attention but quietly takes it. That sensation you feel in your chest, that calm density in your body, that steadiness in your reactions, that's not numbness, that's control, that's power finding its center and staying there. And trust this, they feel it too. The same people who once overlooked you now watch you more closely than they'd ever admit. The same ones who doubted your value suddenly grow quiet when you're near. They don't challenge you the way they used to. They don't test you the same way. Something in them knows the balance shifted. What changed wasn't your volume. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't some dramatic transformation they can point to. You didn't get louder. You didn't start proving anything. You stopped leaking energy. You found your center. And when someone locks into that center fully, they become immovable. Not rigid, not defensive, just solid. You've become a force now. Not the unstable kind that thrashes around trying to dominate, but the rooted kind that doesn't need to fight because its position is already secured. That's why the game shifted without a battle. You didn't win by confrontation. You won by calibration. While others are still reacting, still explaining, still defending, you're simply standing. And here's the truth they can't escape. Energy never lies. The energy you carry now doesn't ask, doesn't plead, doesn't justify. It commands by existing, through eye contact that holds, through silence that speaks, through presence that doesn't flinch. The way you enter a room now isn't defined by appearance or words. It's defined by what arrives before you speak and what stays after you leave. You used to fight for respect. You tried to earn it by being useful, agreeable, available. You bent, shrank, adjusted yourself to keep things smooth. Those days are finished. Respect meets you now instead of being chased. Not because of ego, but because of frequency. You reached a level that can't be copied or diluted. It either exists or it doesn't. And in you, it exists. You don't have to defend yourself anymore because you've become the structure. You used to build walls to protect your energy. Now you are the wall. You used to shrink yourself to keep peace. Now your peace is so stable, it disrupts anything that doesn't align with it. The shift is undeniable. You are not the same, and the world is adjusting to that reality instead of you bending to it. People notice it when they speak to you. There's less reaction in you, more reflection, less noise, more certainty. The old version of you would have explained, argued, tried to be understood. This version observes. The old version needed acknowledgement. This version simply is. And if you're feeling detached from things that once mattered deeply, that's not loss, that's clarity. The shift clears clutter, emotional attachments, mental loops, social ties that no longer fit are falling away without force. You don't need closure. You don't need to announce growth. Your energy is already communicating everything louder than words ever could. This isn't arrogance. This is arrival. This is what it looks like when someone moves through pressure, isolation, and doubt without quitting. When someone honors silence instead of filling it with panic. When someone trusts internal stability over external noise. You are not becoming powerful. You are power realized. And now that you're centered, nothing can knock you loose. Not rejection, not delay, not loss. Because real power isn't about what you hold. It's about who you are when there's nothing to hold on to. Let the shift settle. Let the silence speak. Let this new frequency do the work for you. You're not playing the game anymore. You've become the board. Number 6. Pressure forged you. Silence released you. Pressure didn't break you. It refined you. Silence didn't hide you. It released you. That's the part most people never understand until it's too late. You weren't pushed back. You were forged. Every ounce of pressure you endured compressed you into something denser, sharper, more precise. And now that you've stopped forcing outcomes, everything has started moving toward you. Because when alignment becomes your frequency, force becomes irrelevant. What's meant for you doesn't need to be hunted down. It responds to who you've become. Chosen one, something has shifted in your field, and you know it. Not loudly, not dramatically, subtly. People respond to you differently now. Conversations change tone when you enter the room. Opportunities appear without explanation. That restless need to prove yourself has faded, replaced by a calm certainty you don't even argue with anymore. You're not imagining it. This isn't coincidence. This is magnetism, the kind that can't be manufactured or copied. You've stepped into a state that can't be faked. Real alignment has a signature, and it announces itself without words. When someone reaches it, reality adjusts. The right people recognize you without introduction. The right moments meet you halfway. Doors open that you didn't knock on because you're finally positioned where access makes sense. Nothing needs to be forced when your internal signal is clean. That's why chasing stopped working for you. And it's also why you stopped chasing. You didn't quit because you gave up. You quit because you outgrew it. You realized that running after things from a misaligned place was draining you, dulling you, shrinking you. The moment you stopped performing, stopped bending, stopped trying to be palatable, something snapped into place. Your real signal went out. No confusion, no mixed energy, no contradiction. You're no longer broadcasting desperation masked as ambition. You're no longer sending intentions tangled with doubt. Your direction is clear now, even if the full picture isn't. And what matches that clarity is already moving toward you, fast, quietly, inevitably. But understand this, magnetism isn't just attraction, it's also protection. What used to shake you doesn't even register anymore. Opinions that once cut deep now fall flat. Attempts to provoke you dissolve before they land. Not because you hardened yourself, but because your energy refined itself. You're sealed in a way that doesn't require defense. It's like throwing pebbles at a mountain. The impact never reaches the core. You don't need to explain yourself anymore. You don't need to correct narratives. You don't need to defend your choices. Your presence does the work. The room feels different when you walk in, not because you demand attention, but because your alignment sets the tone. Noise quiets, chaos settles. Those who are secure feel grounded around you. Those who aren't feel exposed. Not because you're attacking, but because truth has weight. This is resonance, and resonance changes everything. You've probably noticed it in how your words land now. You speak less, but when you do, it sticks. You move less, but every move matters. Even your silence carries authority. People feel your decisions before you make them. They sense your direction without you explaining it. That's because you're no longer moving from pressure, you're moving from presence. And presence does two things at once. It heals and it reveals. To those aligned with growth, you feel like clarity, permission, relief. To those rooted in insecurity, you feel like friction, challenge, threat. And that's not your problem. Your energy isn't designed to make everyone comfortable. It's designed to be accurate. Anything that can't exist around truth eventually removes itself. You are no longer the seeker, you are the signal. And here's what makes this stage undeniable. Your magnetism doesn't just serve you. It shifts everyone you come into contact with. You linger. People leave conversations with you thinking differently, seeing differently, acting differently, not because you persuaded them, but because alignment is contagious. That's not charm. That's authenticity at full volume. The world doesn't need more people chasing validation, clout, or approval. It needs grounded individuals who don't flinch, don't chase, don't beg. It needs people who know who they are and don't dilute it to be accepted. That's you now, unfiltered, centered, still. Yes, that will cost you some connections. Some labels will fall away. Some roles won't fit anymore. Some people won't come with you. That's not loss. That's clearance. Magnetism doesn't cling. It clears. Because the moment you hold on to what doesn't match you, you block what does. So trust what's happening. Let what's falling away fall. Let what's delayed take its time. Anything truly aligned with you cannot miss you. It adjusts, it returns, it finds you. This is what it means to move like a mountain, steady, grounded, undeniable, not chasing storms, but letting the winds bend around you. You've become the gravity in your own story. And that kind of presence doesn't need noise, force, or explanation. It pulls everything into place simply by being exactly what it is. Number 7, your presence now ends. Arguments without words. Your presence has reached a level where debates don't even start anymore. You don't argue, you don't explain, you don't defend. The moment you arrive, the conversation shifts. The energy recalibrates, and people feel it without being able to name it. That's the kind of authority you've stepped into. A mountain doesn't argue with the wind. It stands there long enough for everything else to move around it. That's you now. And this moment is far bigger than a personal breakthrough. Yes, you locked in the checkmate. Yes, old cycles collapsed, patterns broke, and noise lost its grip. But this wasn't just about you winning. This was about placement, about stepping into a position that doesn't rely on applause, permission, or validation. You've become living proof of what happens when someone stops seeking approval and starts moving with precision, when someone commits before the roadmap appears, when someone listens to focus instead of distraction. That's why this season feels different. The struggle phase is done, the striving phase is over. You don't need to announce yourself anymore. Your presence speaks before you do. You don't convince people of your value, they feel it. Not because you demanded attention, but because you became solid, stable, certain. You're no longer trying to be recognized. You are the reference point, and that's unsettling for people who built their identity on noise. What's been set in motion now isn't temporary. It's locked, irreversible. Every setback you went through, every delay that tested your patience, every moment that felt unfair was shaping your positioning. You weren't being pushed back, you were being fortified. Now the old pull of fear, people-pleasing and overperforming doesn't work on you anymore. That gravity lost its hold. You may notice things happening faster now, opportunities showing up without force, progress feeling smoother. That's because you're no longer operating from effort alone. You're moving from alignment. And when alignment takes over, resistance loses its voice. People will wonder how you stood firm when it looked like you were finished. How you advanced without noise, shortcuts, or compromise. There won't be a checklist answer. It'll be something they can't replicate. Presence. You didn't follow trends, you followed timing. You didn't survive by accident. You were shaped deliberately by pressure, solitude, and restraint. This isn't about competition anymore. It's about embodiment. The world doesn't need louder voices. It needs grounded ones, and that's what you've become. If the weight feels heavier now, understand why. Influence carries responsibility. You weren't lifted just to stand higher. You were positioned to become a signal. You're no longer climbing toward power. You are standing in it. And from here, the only direction left is forward. Number 8. You stopped chasing and everything lost control. You stopped chasing, and the moment you did, everything else lost its grip. They labeled it chaos because they couldn't track your movement. But what actually happened was precision. You weren't drifting. You were operating on a rhythm they don't have access to. While they were trying to predict your next move using outdated patterns, you shifted lanes entirely. And that's the part that unsettles them the most. When you stopped forcing outcomes, the entire structure rearranged around you. Control slipped out of their hands the second you stopped reaching for approval. Chosen One, absorb this carefully. Your presence right now is not accidental. You didn't stumble into this position. You didn't luck your way into clarity. Even when your path felt fragmented, when direction vanished, when the quiet stretched so long it felt uncomfortable, something was still lining things up with exactness. What looked like confusion from the outside was actually recalibration. What felt like nothing happening was everything being set. This isn't a comforting story to soothe doubt. This is pattern recognition, sequence, cause and effect unfolding with intention. The outcome you're standing in now was being assembled long before anyone noticed the shift. The final move wasn't spontaneous. It was inevitable, and you are the proof that the process worked. You don't carry the same weight you used to. The version of you that questioned their value, that accepted less, that tried to negotiate their place in rooms that never deserved them, that version did its job and stepped aside. You outgrew it. Now you move from certainty, not hesitation. You don't ask where you fit anymore. You move like someone who understands their position shapes the room. Challenges don't crush you now, they refine you. Obstacles don't block you, they redirect you. What once felt like loss is now clearly leverage. The moments they assumed would end you actually expanded your capacity. Every closed door trained your discernment. Every delay sharpened your timing. You carry a steadiness now that doesn't need explanation. People sense it even if they can't define it. It's not performance, it's presence. And presence changes dynamics without effort. You didn't force your way here. You aligned into it. That's why it's locked in. Nothing external can undo what was built internally. The next phase will still test you, but the difference is this: you know who you are now, and that awareness turns pressure into clarity and struggle into momentum. You don't explain this evolution. You move as evidence, as the answer, as living confirmation that nothing you went through was wasted. Number 9. The board is yours, and this cannot be reversed. Chosen One, this is the moment where everything locks into place. Not loudly, not dramatically, permanently. Nothing was handed to you. Nothing was gifted. What you're standing in now was earned inch by inch, through pressure, through heat, through stretches of time that looked empty to everyone else, but were shaping you at the deepest level. This didn't look like progress while it was happening, and that's exactly why it worked. You didn't rise because someone allowed you to. You rose because you endured long enough to become unavoidable. Pause right here and let it register. This calm you're feeling isn't hesitation. It's arrival. You're not waiting for the breakthrough anymore. You're standing inside it. The ground feels different because it is different. The air feels heavier because your presence carries weight now. The game didn't just shift, it finalized. You're no longer reacting to the board. You're positioned at its center, where outcomes are decided. What separates this moment from every other win you've had before is this: nothing here can be taken back. This wasn't force. This wasn't noise. This wasn't a lucky break. This was composure under pressure. Direction when everything around you tried to pull you off course. Discipline when shortcuts were tempting. You didn't chase the seat of power. You became solid enough that the seat formed around you. And yes, it cost you. It cost you old versions of yourself that couldn't survive at this level. It cost you attachments, identities, habits, and comforts that would have collapsed under the weight of what you now carry. That loss wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Only this version of you can hold what's next without breaking it. Understand this clearly. The win wasn't the moment others can see. The win was the transformation they missed. You didn't just close a match. You changed the rules it was played by. The patterns that used to trap you no longer apply. The limits that once felt permanent don't reach this level. Anything that can't adapt will naturally fall away. This isn't just about you. Your existence at this level becomes proof. Proof that quiet consistency beats chaos. Proof that restraint outlasts force. Proof that those who stay the course eventually redefine it. People watching from the edges may not understand how you got here, but they can feel the shift. You don't need to explain it. You are the explanation. So don't downplay this. Don't shrink back into old habits. Don't apologize for taking up space you earned. This isn't ego, it's ownership. You're not stepping into leadership, you're operating from it. Life doesn't soften here, but your judgment sharpens, your reactions steady, your direction clears. This position was never about ruling others. It was always about ruling yourself. And now that you're here, stay grounded in it. Let your silence carry authority. Let your presence set the tone. The game is finished. The board answers to you now. Move accordingly. And as this moment settles, understand this clearly. What has shifted cannot be undone. You're not walking back into the old version of life. You're moving forward with awareness, control, and position. Let this clarity stay with you, and let it guide every next move you make. If this message resonated, support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who needs this reminder right now. Drop 77 in the comments if you felt the shift, and know you're aligned with this message. Your engagement keeps this signal strong and helps us continue delivering focused, high-impact content like this.